It was sold as the deal of a lifetime, a historic victory for every American crushed by the cost of prescription drugs. President Trump was finally going to force Big Pharma to play fair. But on the very day this win for the people was announced, one company's stock absolutely soared, hitting one of its best weeks in decades. What if the deal of the century for you was actually the deal of the century for them? We followed the money, and what we found will change everything you thought you knew about this deal. Section 1. The Grand Promise. For years, the story's been the same. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anyone, anywhere, in the developed world. It's a bitter pill to swallow, knowing the exact same medication from the same factory is sold for a fraction of the price just across the border. The Trump administration rolled out a powerful, simple-sounding solution, the most favored nation policy. The idea was that the U.S. government would no longer let other countries free ride on American innovation. From now on, America would pay the lowest price that any other developed nation pays. Simple as that. On September 30, 2025, this idea supposedly became a reality with a landmark announcement. The administration had struck its first big deal with one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, Pfizer. The promise to the American people came into big parts. First, every single state Medicaid program in the country would now get Pfizer's drugs at these new, lower most favored nation prices. This was framed as a massive relief for some of our most vulnerable citizens and a huge savings for taxpayers. Second, and this sounded revolutionary, was the announcement of a new platform launching in 2026. For the first time, you, the American patient, could go to a federal website and buy medicines directly from Pfizer at staggering discounts. We're talking 40% to 85% off the sticker price for certain drugs. A popular arthritis medication, Xeljanz, would be 40% off. The migraine treatment, Zavspret, slashed by 50%. On the surface, it looked like Big Pharma was finally waving the white flag, an undeniable, transformative win for the American patient. But what did it really take to get Pfizer to the table? And what did they get in return? Section 2. The turning point, the price of the deal. To understand what's really going on, you have to look at the immense pressure campaign that led to this moment. For months, the Trump administration had been holding a massive financial weapon over the entire drug industry, the threat of crippling tariffs on imported medicines. For a global company like Pfizer, which manufactures drugs all over the world, that kind of threat would be catastrophic. And then, with the stroke of a pen, the threat vanished for Pfizer, in exchange for agreeing to the Medicaid and direct-to-consumer discounts. Pfizer secured certainty that it would be shielded from these tariffs. On top of that, the company pledged to invest heavily in research and manufacturing here in the United States. This is the first piece of the puzzle that changes the whole picture. This wasn't an armed list. It was a negotiation, a trade. Pfizer gave some concessions, yes, but in return, it got something it desperately wanted: stability. It traded targeted discounts for immunity from a far greater financial threat. The real question is, who got the better end of that bargain? Section 3. The investigation. Following the money, the answer didn't come from the White House press conference. It came from Wall Street. On the day of the announcement, Pfizer's stock surged over 6%. In the 2 days that followed, its share price jumped a staggering 14.2%, one of its best gains in years. And it wasn't just Pfizer. The whole healthcare sector rallied, marking its best-to-date performance since 2020. Let that sink in for a second. A deal supposedly designed to slash a pharma giant's profits instead sent its stock value into the stratosphere. Investors weren't scared, they were thrilled. They looked at this deal and saw a clear win for Pfizer. Why? Because the deal removed the single biggest risk hanging over the company's head: the unpredictable threat of tariffs. One analyst from Cantor Fitzgerald put it bluntly, suggesting the deal was more optics than bite, and noted that for all the fanfare, Pfizer didn't even change its official financial forecast. In other words, The company wasn't expecting any real hit to its bottom line. Even Pfizer's own CEO, Albert Bourla, basically admitted it. He said that uncertainty over pricing had been hurting investment, and this deal provided clarity. That clarity was worth billions to shareholders. The company had successfully traded a manageable, contained discount for the removal of a catastrophic threat. The deal wasn't a punishment, it was a relief. Section 4. The human cost. Who really benefits? So if Wall Street and Pfizer's executives were celebrating, what about you? Does this deal actually solve the problem of high drug prices? Let's look closer at who gets these new, lower prices. First, state Medicaid programs. That's a good thing. But Medicaid already gets significant, legally required rebates on drugs. So while this will likely offer more savings, the impact isn't as dramatic as it sounds. The second group is uninsured patients or people willing to pay cash through the new government platform. For someone without insurance who needs a Pfizer drug, an 80% discount could be life-changing. There's no denying that. But who's left out? The vast majority of Americans. Over 150 million people get health insurance through their job. This Pfizer deal does not directly lower the price that your insurance plan pays for these drugs. It doesn't change your copay when you go to CVS or Walgreens. It doesn't reduce your monthly premiums or your deductible. That 40% discount on Xeljanz, it only applies if you go outside your insurance and buy it with cash on the new website. For the millions of us with private insurance, the tangled web of pharmacy benefit managers, rebates, and secret negotiations that actually determines our costs remains completely untouched by this deal. The core of the problem for most people hasn't been solved. Section 5. The hidden dangers, a global shell game. The issues might run even deeper. Experts have been sounding the alarm on most favored nation policies for years, warning that they sound good politically, but are structurally flawed. First, there's the transparency problem. This kind of policy is easily gamed. How do we really know the lowest price in another country? A drug company could simply offer a high public price in, say, Germany, and then give the German government a massive, confidential rebate. The US price would be pegged to that high public price, while the real price stays hidden. It's a global shell game where we have to trust the very companies we're trying to regulate. Second, this could just shift the burden to other countries. Faced with lower prices in the massive US market, pharma companies could simply raise their prices in Europe and other nations to make up the difference. Or worse, they might just delay launching new, life-saving drugs in smaller countries altogether. But the single biggest risk is to future medical innovation. The uncomfortable truth is that the high prices paid by Americans currently fund a huge chunk of global pharmaceutical research and development. One analysis from the USC Sheffer Center noted that about 70% of the industry's profits flow from the US market. Slashing the revenue could have a devastating long-term effect on the discovery of new cures. A 2019 study even estimated this kind of price setting could lead to hundreds of fewer new drugs in the coming decades. Are we willing to trade tomorrow's cures for today's discounts? Conclusion: NCTA. So, what's the real mystery of Trump's deal with Big Pharma? It's not some secret conspiracy. It's the enormous gap between the political promise and the financial reality. It was presented as a victory for the people over a corporate giant. But the evidence shows it was a carefully negotiated trade that gave both sides exactly what they wanted. The administration got a major political win and headlines about slashing drug prices. And Pfizer got protection from tariffs, a clear path forward for its business, and a $1 billion boost in its stock value. The discounts are real, but they're for a select few, leaving most insured Americans right where they were, stuck in the same broken system. The deal is a bandage, not a cure. If you believe the details behind these deals matter, share this video. The more people who understand the difference between a press release and what's really happening, the better. For more investigations that follow the money, make sure you subscribe and let us know in the comments. After hearing all this, do you think this deal is a win for patients or a masterclass in corporate negotiation?